Yo, guys, welcome back. It's been a while since we've been on a live, but we're going to do a live today. We're going to talk about the different demographics of people of African descent, melanated people. You know, we're going to see where they're at all around America. This video is going to be only about the United States and about America. So I eventually in the future will probably do other countries and talk about some of the demographics and where people are and where people are at. But today we're going to talk about that today. We're going to wait about, I would say, maybe 15 minutes to try to let some people get in here since this is a live, and then I'll go on with the information from there. But until then, what's up, guys? Been so long. We're going to start the video in about 10, 15 minutes, and we're going to just get a little bit more information so people can, move certain places when they go visit. They'll sort of kind of know the demographics of certain places. I think a lot of people don't really pay attention to it. They just hear it word by mouth, but by mouth. And so I'm just going to try to like help out a little bit, And then eventually, I think I'm going to add a video to this so it can attach on, so you can just see like a visual. I'm gonna try to do like a animated video. Hopefully after this, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, 15 minutes from now, we'll start the video. So it's 1:34. We'll start 40, and then we'll start at 1:50, and should be pretty interesting. But what's up, guys? What's good? I have the slow mode on for messages because I want to make sure that I can somewhat reply to people when they comment down here when I start the video. So I put a 5-second hold on comments. So if you comment and then it doesn't go through, you have to wait 5 seconds for the next one because I don't want to get backed up with questions. I really could have put it on like 60 seconds, but that's too long. So, but yeah, what's up, guys? What's good? Actually, I need to create a live intro that waits until the video is ready. I'm actually gonna probably make one of those tonight as well. But let's see. Let's pull some things up, Professor. I'll be ready um, in about 10 to 15 minutes. Let's pull this up. Try to be on my A game today. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. So the reason I'm making this video in general is because you know, I thought that it would be nice for people to sort of kind of get a gauge about some information in 2022. Most of the information is 2022. Some of the information is within a year or two. So you sort of kind of got to be a little bit, use your imagination, right? With some of the stats and the information, whatever that might be. But I mean, anything within 2 to 3 years, I don't see it really changing that much. So yeah. But I think that this will be great because it will give people ideas if they're looking for marriage, if they're looking for certain morals and values, if they're looking for higher numbers. Um, because obviously, if you have higher numbers, you probably have more of a chance of finding somebody that you want to either network with or you want to have a relationship with or get married or whatever you guys want to do. Just have events, throw events, whatever it is. Like, that's why I'm sort of kind of making this video to let people be more aware of like different demographics of people of African descent, Black people, whatever you like to call yourself, melanated, indigenous, whatever, right? But all these different melanated people in America and the different demographics of them, that's where I'm going to start off today. That's what we're going to do. And yeah, just thought it was dope. Thought it was a dope idea because I don't think a lot of people know. Now, these are also stats too. Before I get started, these are also stats too. Some stats are from private companies that have done these statistics and have, taken records and accumulated all these statistics from different people and different surveys and stuff like that. And then some of this is from the government, which, take it with a grain of salt, right? Like, I get it. Everybody doesn't fill out forms. Everybody doesn't tell the truth about things, but it's just sort of kind of a way to, compact it a little bit to know, okay, cool. Like, this is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. It's here. This is what I want. This is what I'm looking for. It's here. And that's sort of kind of one of those things, right? Nothing's ever probably going to be 100% accurate, but we're trying to do the best we can. You know what I'm saying? What we got. So Also, I did the Black Panther video, and the Black Panther I can't even speak. The Black Panther video that I did on the first Black Panther, Mosey, it's there. So if you want to go check it out to look more into the lore of Black Panther, because it gets really deep. And I'm actually going to make a series from the first Black Panther all the way up to like the modern Black Panther, and then even into the future. A lot of things people don't really realize about Wakanda. I'm a big anime guy, I like comic books and stuff like that. Actually, I'm more of an anime guy than I'm actually a comic book guy, but I'm getting more into like comic books and stuff like that, right? I had some people in my family that liked comic books when they was growing up. And so, anyways, the one thing that I find so interesting, a lot of people don't know, is that there's a whole bunch of different characters that they haven't even introduced yet that are like around the actual country. So there's actually people that are more powerful sometimes than Black Panther within Wakanda, but they just be doing their own thing. They have a different path. They're not trying to save the world, whatever, whatever. So I'm going to be making a whole line of videos about all the Black Panthers, then the characters that are in Wakanda that a lot of people don't know about, more powerful characters, more weaker characters. And then also, I'm going to make a video about Storm and T'Challa and Storm and Black Panther because they got married. And if you don't know, I made a video about Storm too. You can go check that out after the Black Panther video. Storm is originally from Egypt. And so she basically roams around Africa for a while she's acquiring her power. Well, she got her power. She's trying to hone it. And then eventually she gets to America. But I forgot how she got to America. I think she got adopted or something like that, or she went to school. I can't really remember. So, but it's been a minute since I've been on live as well. It's been a minute. And guys, I'm trying to make sure that we stay on schedule. So if anybody's watching this video afterwards, because this is a live, so if anybody watches the video afterwards and you just want to skip, then you can skip to 15 minutes from when I begin this video. I'll probably put the time mark down at the bottom too, to where you can just go into the actual video that we're going to talk about in about uh yeah, let's just say like 5 more minutes. Give some more people to come in, time to come in, because I know it's the middle of the day. So everything I just said, erase that. I'm gonna put the timestamp down there. It ain't gonna be 15 minutes. It's gonna be 10 minutes. Um, because actually, I need to get somewhere. I didn't even really realize how late it was, and it is the middle of the day, so a lot of people are probably working. So 5 more minutes, and then we'll start. But it feels good. It's the weekend, you know. A lot of celebrations this weekend. I actually got a new camera that I want to try out. Don't know if I'm gonna try it out tonight. I'm supposed to go make videos after this as well. Don't know if I'm gonna try it out tonight, but I really am interested in this new camera that I bought to try to bring you guys a little bit different content. There's actually another camera that I want to get that is going to be super duper dope, and it's sort of kind of game changing in a way, right? It's like a unique view, and it exists, of course, but I don't think it exists in the way that I want to use it, or at least not that I've really seen too much. So we're gonna see. I might take out the camera tonight, the new camera tonight, and like shoot a video tonight and tomorrow, and then compile it into a video in general. Because, excuse me, because I haven't really did food videos. I haven't really did travel videos for a minute. Everything's opening back up. All the countries, for the most part, don't really need no vaccine check or whatever, or no card or anything. All the complications that come with microorganism running around, right? So basically, the travel videos are going to be up a lot in the springtime. Matter of fact, there's going to be a time, and I'm just pre-warning you guys, there's probably going to be a time for months where I'm just traveling and it's not really going to be learning videos. I mean, it's still going to be learning. You're still going to learn, but you're just going to be learning through the travel. So yeah. So in about 3 more minutes, we're going to start. We're going to start. Let me just put this in the chat too. I had to hit you with the library and the school type talk right there in the chat, because some people just be going wilding out. We gotta be a little uh, democratic, or have a little democracy. You know what I'm saying? Even if we don't be agreeing with each other, sometimes people just be wilding out, want to cut people's heads off. I mean, I guess that's cool sometimes, but like, to I feel like to get people to be on the same accord, you sort of kind of like, need to be a little respectful and just ask questions, even if you mad or you disagree or whatever. I mean, I can get livid sometimes too, so I get it. 2 minutes, guys. We're gonna start. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So let me go ahead and get this ready. And like I said before, I will put the timestamp when I start the video as far as the knowledge or whatever. You guys can ask me questions. I'll put it down there in the comments when I finish the video. So 1 more minute, and then we're gonna start. Let's see. I want to make sure I have everything. Now, these is going to be some stats that you might not like all the time. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going off of just information that I've gathered. I try to gather as much as I could from different places, compile it. Some of this information, like I told you, take it with a grain of salt. Some things are not, concrete. Some people are not filling out censuses and forms. You already know how Black people do, anyways. A lot of people don't do that. So, of course, there's still other ways to count people, but I'm just saying on certain uh, uh certain stats, right? And like certain demographics, it might not be as accurate as maybe it is in real life because some people just don't be filling stuff out or be going and doing certain things. It is what it is. But yeah, let's see. Thank you so much. Yeah, the hair is getting long. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to. I don't know how much longer it's going. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how much more longer I'm gonna let it get for real. Like this is the size that I'm cool with, so I might just let it keep going. You know what I'm saying? But yo, guys. Okay, so we're gonna start now. So let's start. Actually, if I can pull this up, we'll start. All right. So I'm just going off stats, right? This is just for knowledge. If you want something deeper, you want to do your own research. I always admire people that go and do their own research. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm wrong. This is just all the things that I pulled together, and I'm just the messenger trying to help people. You know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and start. Um, so the Black population in America, right? So we're going to be talking about African Americans right here, right? Of course, African Americans, they have so many different ways that they would like to be identified, right? Some people like to be called Black Americans. Some people like to be called African Americans. Some people like to be called Indigenous. Some people like to be called whatever, Moors, whatever it might be, right? But I'm talking about the melanated people that have been here for a very, very long time, right? And especially over probably let's say 3 generations, right? I think 3 generations would probably be the best way to say it. You know what I'm saying? So the Black population in America, African Americans, right? Whatever, indigenous people, the demographics. So let's start off with the regions. The regions are very interesting. I think a lot of people know that majority of Black people are in the South. Of course, I think that's a given for most people that are in America. Maybe outside of America, people don't know that the most African Americans are in the South. I think some people would put two and two together with history in the South in America or the United States, but some people still don't know. So let's start off here, right? Okay, let's start off with the least to the most. This is interesting. So as 2022, right? Only 9% of the West Coast, or the West Coast only has a 9% Black population. So when you're talking about the West Coast, you're talking about Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, and over. So you're talking about Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, Idaho, Utah, Arizona, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Cali, or California. That's all considered the Western United States in the United States of America. That they only have 9%. 9% of Black people, all those, the whole region has 9%. In the Northeast, right? I'm going from least to highest, right? I think a lot of people would think differently about what I'm about to say, but this is what it says. In the Northeast, there are 16% Black people. Northeast consists of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, Maine, Vermont, and Rhode Island, if I'm correct. Yeah, I can't really see it 100% because it's so small, but yeah, the Northeast, 16%. West Coast, 9% of Black people. Northeast, 6% of Black people. The Midwest, 17%. That's my region. We have 1 more% than the East Coast. What's up, guys? What up? You know what I'm saying? But the Midwest has 17% African Americans, right? In the Midwest. So what's in the Midwest is North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, right? Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, what else? Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, Minnesota. Oh, I'm sorry, I said Minnesota, Michigan, and then my state, Ohio, right? 17% of the Black population is in the Midwest. So the West Coast has 9%, the East Coast has 16%, the Midwest has 1 more% more, 17%. And then let's go to the Mecca, right, of Black Americans or African Americans, right, in America. The Mecca is the South, of course, which everybody should already know that, especially if you're in America, you already know that you can feel it. You know it throughout heritage. Like a lot of times your people came from the South to the North or whatever it might have been, or maybe some people was already in the North. Some people have been in the North for a long time. We're just talking about from a certain event time period to a certain time period. Guys, I get it. There's different time periods. Understand all that. We're just trying to keep it simple right now because if we go too far, people like normal people, they don't even understand history as it is to begin with. So if you like talking about 5,000 years ago and then you talk about today, like most people they don't even know 100 years ago. So you just gotta break it apart at first, right? But from one time event to another time event, right? 58% of Black people or African Americans are in the South. What does the South consist of? Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Kentucky, West Virginia. Even though I heard one West Virginian person say that they don't really think that West Virginia is the South, they think it's like the Southeast or the East South, which is like it's in the middle, whatever. To me, it's the South. It's West Virginia. It's west of Virginia. Virginia is the South. So West Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, right? North Carolina, South Carolina as well. So there's 58%. So I said that to say this, right? Those are the demographics. I'm saying this to say this is that if you're from Africa, if you're from the Caribbean, South America, Central America, Europe, right, Asia, or you're just in America, if you're looking for Black American, African American, right, if you're looking for them, your highest chance, whether it be for love, for friendship, for education, to feel the common bonds, if you guys can actually reach a common bond, right, for work, school, business, whatever resources, they're in the South. The highest chance you're going to have is probably in the South when it comes to networking with other African Americans, or if you're from a different country, networking with African Americans or trying to find love. Because actually, African Americans are very sought after in a lot of places around the world. I know a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of times you have to travel. I get it. You always have to throw in the um, percentages of people that are just trying to use you to get to America or whatever it is, right? That's obviously a real thing. But there's also a lot of people that love the culture, African American culture. They love the music, they love the movies, they love the family, they love the togetherness, the way that Black Americans speak. They love all these things. They love the food, soul food, right? The different type of dishes. They just love the culture in general. So if you're one of those people, or you're another African American that wants to like network or be in the mecca of Black people in America, it's the South, right? It's the South. Then the Northeast and the Midwest, you'll have luck too. The West Coast, of course, you'll have luck, but I think if you go to the West Coast, you can't just jump out on the West Coast and expect a whole bunch of Black people. Like that's not really how it is. And it's interesting because in the South, you can almost now. I don't want to say that to make you think that you can just jump out in the country and find Black people in the South, even though you can, because it's the South. So there's still a lot of Black people that live in the country, believe it or not. But probably the major cities, right? At one point, a lot of Black people lived in rural areas, whatever, right? And then at one point, they moved more into the inner city urban area. So, as you know, any urban city in the South, whether it be Atlanta, Miami, Houston, Dallas, what am I missing here? What all these cities, right? Raleigh, any of these cities, Memphis and Tennessee, right? There's going to be a huge population of Black Americans, African Americans in that area. You go to the East Coast, of course, you have to probably stay for sure, and in the Midwest for the most part. You're going to have to stay in the city, but there are some Black people that live in smaller areas, maybe some that live in the country. I don't really know any Black person, maybe one that I've ever met in Ohio that actually lives in the country. When I say country, I'm not talking about small city, small town. No, I'm talking about like the country, like the country where there's only like a house like 4 or 5 miles down the road or 10 miles down the road. Like I'm talking about that. I don't only know one, and I just met them not too long ago. You know what I'm saying? So like in the Midwest and East Coast, majority of the times, I would probably say like 95% of the time, the black people that you meet are going to live in the inner city of the biggest cities in that region, the second biggest cities in that region, like the second tier cities, or the third tier cities that are they're barely still a city, but they have enough population of maybe I don't know what makes a city. I think what makes a big city is 500,000 residents, and that's considered a big city in America. So 500,000 people, like over a population, it's considered a big city. So I think maybe a small city before it becomes like a town, or and then under that maybe a village. I think it might be I don't know 25,000 or 100,000 or maybe even like 15,000. I don't know. I have to look that up. But anyways, Northeast, Midwest. If you want to find African Americans, you're going to have to probably 99% of the time, 96, 95% of the time, you're going to have to go to the cities. Like whatever the bigger cities are, and then the second bigger cities, and then the third tier bigger cities in whatever state you go to. The West Coast, you're going to have to go for the most part probably to urban environments or urban areas like inner city areas to find black people, like or just city is what I'm saying, suburbs and the inner city, because there's some places where there's not big populate black populations, probably like Idaho, Wyoming. I'm just coming off the top of my head, but I know for sure because I lived in America for a long time, and I know for sure that Wyoming has a small black population, Montana does, Idaho. And so if you take certain states like that on the West Coast, that only just in general 9% of the West Coast, and you take those states and you know that, and then you apply that same math where there's double the population in the Midwest, where you know for sure, like in the Midwest, in Detroit is one of the it might be the most heavily black population city in America. I know it's between Detroit, Harlem, and Atlanta. And maybe not even Harlem no more, but I'm pretty sure it's I don't know. It could be Detroit, but I think it's like 600,000 people in like the Detroit area that are like black people, or 700,000, something like that. It's very black. Detroit is like super black for real. If you go there, it's funny because there was one time I watched a commercial, and the commercial, I think it was an Arab restaurant. It was like a Middle Eastern restaurant, but all the people in the commercial were black except for the owner was Arab, and I was like, yo. So those are the demographics for African Americans in America. If you're interested, if you're outside of America or if you're inside of America. So we're about to go to the next one. Yo, what up, JIB? I appreciate it, yo. Thank you so much. I appreciate it for watching the channel. Yo, what's good? African First Mentality. What's good? What's good? Long time, long time. I appreciate you guys coming. Now let's look at a couple more stats for African Americans before I move on to another group of or ethnic group of Black people, right, or African people. So in America, this is from the compiled from the United States, right, government, and then also from private, like ventured companies that have put these stats together, right? And they've all combined them. And so they're just a rough estimate, like they all put them into one stat and it's a rough estimate, right? And so the population of just African Americans is 40 million. So like 40.2 million as of 2022, right? The median income is $46,000 for African American, right? Whether it be woman or man. And then the median income for every other population in America is $70,000. So we're below. The percent of employment for African Americans is 55%. The percent of employment for everybody else is 59%. So we're below, but we're not that much below, just compared to the population in general. The bachelor's degrees are 25% for African Americans. For the rest of the population, right? Everybody that's not of African descent is 35%. So the people that are not African Americans are getting more degrees, right, than people that are African American, right? Home ownership is 44% for African Americans. The rest of the United States, 65%. Families in poverty is almost double. So families that are barely making it or in poverty are almost double, or 18%. And the rest of the country is 9%. right? And these are figures compiled up from the government and other institutions. Some are black, some are not. So they're just all piled in together, right? So take it with a grain of salt, some things, right? Whatever. I get it. We all have pride and whatever, but then like these are numbers in general. So we're just looking at the numbers, right? What up, love? And the percent married for Black Americans is only 30%, and the rest of the population is 49%. You know, we already know on YouTube about the relationship talks that's going on within like the Black community in general. So we already know what that is. You know what I'm saying? We got work to do in general when it comes to just like how we treat each other, of course. But it is what it is. Um, so Black household makeup, right? So Black like African Americans, right? Or Black Americans that are married are 27%, right? 27%. Single female led family is 26%. And then single male led family is 5%. Now, of course, we know with these stats, right, that sometimes the father might not be in the picture or might not be doing things to where they're even getting counted. The mother might be doing things or might not be in the picture to where they're being counted. So, it is what it is. But of course, I would say, of course, naturally, it's lopsided. Like, yeah, I know a lot of women that have kids that there's no father in their life. I don't think that that's right. I wish that it could be worked out, whatever, whatever. But I think it's more of a cultural and historical thing that we got to work through. And it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Um, but yo, you should get locks, Levy. You should. It's they're I like them. You should definitely think about it. And then let's see. And then 6% are single male family. Oh, I'm so sorry. So 6%, not 5%. I apologize. I mistalked. 6%. Living alone is 36%. So the mass majority, like from a single category, is living alone is 36%. I guess I would have to throw myself in there too, right? People that are not getting married, people that are still looking for somebody, people that don't have any kids, that are, I don't know, younger, maybe they just turned 18 or whatever, or 17, they're living alone, they're going to college, or that's all within the 36%. And so with rent and mortgage, right? This is for African Americans across the board around America. For rent, Black Americans spend 58% of their income on rent. Everybody else spends 51%. With mortgages, which you already know how the housing game goes, so take this with a grain of salt, and like I said, take this with a grain of salt, and like sort of kind of do your own due diligence too. But mortgage and owner cost, 36% is Black American, right? 36%, or basically we spend 36% on mortgages and owning homes. And then the rest of the population only spends 28%. So I don't really know what that means, to be truly honest with you. Some people are getting played to the left, right, by just demographics, where you live at, higher interest rates. Your credit might not be good too, as well. Who knows? Um, Maybe you're getting houses that are more expensive than what you can afford. I mean, who really knows? Everybody is living different. You know what I'm saying? I'm just giving you the numbers. So yeah, so that in a nutshell is all for African Americans. And I think that we're going to go to the next one. So if you want to talk to African American, you want to see a Black American, you want to be with them, you're from a different country, or you're in America in general, yo, that's what it is right there. You know what I'm saying? And you can make your decision from there. Network, marriage, friendship, companionship. The South seemed like the mecca for Black people, and actually, there's a big migration going back to the South for a lot of Black people. So maybe the population of the South will be more, because the population of the South before 1910, I think, was like 90% of Black people lived in the South in America. And then you had the great African American migration, like I did a video on, where a lot of people went to the North and to the West Coast. So usually, if you're within like 1 to 2 or maybe even 3 states over, and you just go straight up, usually, not always, but usually, that's where most of the Black people from your state went to. So if you're in New York, a lot of people, Black people from New York, came from North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, and they went straight up. If you go a little bit over to the Midwest, like where I live in Ohio, same thing. A lot of Black people from like Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, they came from South Carolina. Their grandparents or great grandparents came from South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, right? Louisiana, and they came straight up. It just makes sense, right? So that's sort of kind of the demographics of African Americans. Do I want to get married? Yeah, I want to get married. You know what I'm saying? Just got to find the right girl, and that's not easy nowadays. So yeah, I definitely would like to get married. So the next demographics we're going to go to African immigrants that come or came to America in the last within 2 generations, right? So like maybe they were born here, but then their parents weren't, right? Or maybe they're just coming here right now, like they're the first generation, like right now. So this was actually called the Fourth Great Migration because they passed a law and well, okay, so there was the Immigration Act and Nationality Act of 1960. Can't even speak. The Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. Can I even speak, guys? I wish I could edit that out. Okay, let's do it again. So there's the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, right? And that repealed the national quotas, and that basically was the segue into the Immigration Act of 1990, right? And then after the Immigration Act of 1990, they started the program, right? The diversity program or diversity visa program, which a lot of people know as a green card. And then after that, like mad African people started to come into America. So basically, after 1999, that's when like mad African people started to come into America, right? And so when they started to come into America, there was a huge populations. A lot of the populations that come or came and is still coming are from North Africa, West Africa, and East Africa. South Africa would be the lowest, but North Africa, East Africa, South Africa. A lot of Angolians, a lot of Cameroonians, a lot of Cape Verdean, a lot of uh, Algerians, Egyptians, Eritreans, Ethiopians, Ghanaians, right? And so that's sort of kind of the demographics. The lower half, even though there's a huge population where I live at in Columbus, Ohio, of Somalis, the lower half of population is like the lower eastern part of Africa or the middle part of East Africa and the lower part of East Africa and South Africa. So you have like Rwandans are one of the lowest that come over here, even though there's not that many Rwandans in general. The population of Rwanda is actually small. Rwanda is a pretty small African country and a country in general. Then you have Senegal, then you have like Sierra Leone. These are some of the smaller populations. Then of course you have like South African coming to America is smaller, makes sense where South Africa is, where the United States is in North America, right? And then you have like places like Uganda and stuff that's a little bit smaller, but they are here. Yo, shout out to all my Rwandans, you know what I'm saying? Beat they, you know what I'm saying? Beat they, Nabziza, Makuru, Nemeza, right? And then shout out to my Somalis at the high, you know, Makuhrasha of Somali. You know, I'm just showing off a little bit of the languages that I know right now, you know. But um, those that's basically what happened from 1990 on. The African population in America boomed. Where are the biggest populations of Africans now? Overall, as far as like state, the biggest population for Africans in any state in America is Washington, D.C. So the DMV area on the East Coast of America, if you're not from America, right? Washington, D.C., it's under I was about to say Philly, but Pennsylvania, right? Philadelphia, the city Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the state. It's under Pennsylvania and it's on top of Virginia, right? Or well, the DMV, Virginia is part of the area. So, anyways, in Maryland, or I'm sorry, in Washington D.C. has the hugest population. Now, the DMV area, right, which is what Maryland, Virginia, and DMV. I can't even say it. Maryland, Virginia, and District of Columbia, right? Because Washington D.C. is its own. Washington D.C. is not even part of Maryland, which I don't know if some people know that. Washington D.C. is actually its own country, theoretically, right? Or you could say that Washington D.C. is actually the United States of America, and every other state around Washington D.C., even Maryland, is actually like under the protectorate of America, right? Or like basically like America lays claim to all the rest of the states in America. This is why, obviously, with checks and balances in America, we have governors, we have state legal system, then we have city legal systems, and we have a mayor over cities, right? And then obviously, there's different laws in every part of America. So every state has different laws, right? So, and that's why we have federal federal judicial, can't even speak, federal court system, and then we have state court system, and then we have city court systems. So theoretically, every state in America is a different country, theoretically, right? Because you go from Ohio to Kentucky, they have different laws. So Washington D.C. is its own, I don't know, 20, 30 square miles, and it's its own entity. It's really what the United States of America really is. That's really the United States of America, is just Washington D.C. And they have their own taxes and they have their own laws. They have different laws, whatever. I'm pretty sure somebody from DMV will tune into this, you know. That's very true, Lovey, and I'm about to get there. I'm about to actually get there. There is more Caribbeans in the East Coast, but we gonna go there in a second. So the biggest population of Africans in Washington D.C. Now, you know, in Washington D.C., they gonna be held down by, you know, some of my family that lives there. You know, Eritreans, Ethiopians. There's Nigerians. There's different populations of Africans there, but of course, I think the biggest population, if I'm correct, is Ethiopians and Eritreans, which, if you don't know, is East African, two East African countries. Ethiopia has 82 tribes. Eritrea has 9. And at one point, there were no borders. There were different kingdoms. There was like the Exam Empire. There was like the kingdom of the Mot, or Damat, if I'm correct in pronouncing it right. There were different kingdoms in what is modern day Eritrea. Excuse me. There was different kingdoms in what is modern day Ethiopia. And at one point, there was no borders between Ethiopia and Eritrea. And there's tribes that are in both countries, right? That are in both countries that are literally the same people, but obviously they live in different regions in different countries. So therefore, they can differ a little bit. It's almost like Somalis that are in Somalia. And then you go to Djibouti, right? Right on top, you go to Djibouti, and there's Somalis in Djibouti, but there's also the Afar tribe in Djibouti too. And so the Somalis in Djibouti dress a tidbit different. The colors are a little bit different, but you know, like they still identify as Somali people, but they're just from Djibouti. They'd be like, oh, I'm Djiboutian, or I'm from Djibouti, but they're still Somali because it's different tribes in different countries. So just because you're from a certain country doesn't mean that you're different from somebody from a different country. From a nationality standpoint, yeah, you could be. The same as you could say that Jamaican American grew up in Washington D.C. and then a Jamaican grew up in Jamaica, but like they still share similar cultures. You know what I'm saying, for the most part, and they still come from a certain root or a certain type of organization. So you could think about it like that, right? So the most Africans are in Washington D.C. The second biggest population of Africans are in Minnesota, right? Minneapolis, St. Paul, which is probably going to be like 80% Somali because it's the Midwest, and Somalis, Ghanaians, and Nigerians are like running the Midwest, especially Somalis. So when you go to Minnesota, I'm not saying you shouldn't expect Ethiopians and Nigerians, Ghanaians. Of course you will, but the huge population of Africans there will be Somalis, guaranteed. Because that's the first biggest population of Somalis in America. Where I live at, Columbus, Ohio, is number 2. Atlanta, Georgia, has the third biggest population, which is interesting to me because I didn't think about that. Fourth is Boston. Fifth is Baltimore. So basically, everywhere on the East Coast, in the South, in the East, Sub-East, is going to be where most Africans in America are, and then parts of the Midwest. But if you're talking about different demographics of African people, like if you want to just seek out Rwandan people, well, most Rwandans are in Portland, Maine. They're in Colorado and Texas, right? There are other places too, but those are like the main places. If you're looking for Ethiopian Eritreans, Washington, D.C. is number 1. I think LA is number 2. I'm going off top of the head right here. I think Seattle's number 3. And I think where I live at, Columbus, Ohio, is number 4 or 5, right? So if you break it down even more, there's places that are even more saturated with just one group of African people, if that's what you want. But when it comes to actual counties, right? Like not like state or areas, but counties, which is smaller areas, Texas, Harris County, Texas actually has the biggest population of African people in the whole country, Harris County in Texas, which is crazy to think about. But it's hot there probably, so I can understand why they're going there. Number 2 county is Los Angeles County, which has 60,000 uh, African people. Well, at least as of 2020 to 2022. And then you have Bronx, New York, which makes sense. A lot of people in Bronx, New York are probably going to be West African because it's New York, right? You have some East Africans in New York, you do, but it's very rare, especially for me, somebody coming from Ohio, where it's a lot of East Africans and West Africans. West Africans, but a lot of East Africans. When you go to the Bronx, it's probably going to be more West Africans. I can almost guarantee it, right? Because I used to be in New York. I used to live in New York for a minute, and so yeah, like I guarantee it. The third is Montgomery County, Maryland, which we already know. We talked about Maryland, 54,000. Then the last fifth one is Minnesota, 53,000. So yeah, this is it seems like if you compile up all the information that we just said, majority of Africans are probably on the East Coast of America. But then again, that might not be saying too much because 80%, I think 78 or 80% of the population of America is from the Mississippi River over to the East Coast, right? And I'm going this way to you guys. Hopefully, it looks like I'm going east. To me, I'm not. I'm going the opposite way. That would be West Coast. But yeah, you get what I'm saying. So 80% of the population of America, almost 80% of the population of America, is on the East Coast. Mississippi River over. So Midwest, South, East Coast. That's almost 80% of the population of America in general. West Coast has a lot of land and a lot of free areas. The Midwest does too, but they definitely do. So if you want African people, probably stay east of America. If you want to break it down to different demographics of African people, if you want a wife or a husband, or you want to get into the community, or you want to go to festivals, you just want to enjoy the culture or network or do business, then yes, look city to city, region to region, but stay on the East Coast for African people, Midwest, East Coast, South, mostly the East Coast and the Midwest. That's where you're going to probably find the most African people. So that's African people, yo. Let's go on to the next one. Now, let's talk about Caribbeans or West Indies, right? West Indians, Caribbeans, right? We're going to talk about this. These are just West Indians, Caribbeans. These are not Afro Latinos. We're going to get to Afro Latinos next after this, but this is just West Indian, Caribbeans, right? People, Black people that come from countries that don't speak Spanish, or maybe they do a little bit, or maybe they speak French, but the official language is English, or majority of these countries' official language is English, or whatever it might be. Maybe just people just know English. Most people speak English. So this is what we was talking about. I think it was my girl. Who was it? It was Lovey, right? I hope I'm saying that right, Lovey. And so with Lovey, you're correct. Majority of the Caribbean people live on the East Coast. So the majority of the Caribbean people live in Florida and New York City, which makes 100% like sense. I sort of tongue tied myself because obviously the Caribbean's right there. You have Florida. So, of course, Florida is going to be one of the biggest population, if not the biggest population. Then you have New York, but maybe New York is the biggest population because New York is just the biggest city in the United States of America in general. So, right. So, like more people are there. It makes sense. But New York, Florida, you want Caribbean people? This is where you go. These are the two meccas. We're going to go top five, but these are the two meccas. If you want Puerto Ricans, if you want Cubans, if you want Dominicans, Jamaicans, Haitians, Trinidad, Tobago, British West Indies, Barbadians, Belizeans, Bohemians, Dutch West Indian, Grenada. I was about to mess that one up. Antigua and Barbudan. I never even heard of that, to be honest with you. Virgin Islands. One I can't even pronounce right now. Was it Vincentian? Don't kill me for this, right? St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, or whatever you call it, Dominica, right? Dominican, Dominican Republic. No, no, Dominican Republic. No, Dominican. Bermudian, Surinese, yeah, I actually did a video about Surinese people. Like that's crazy. It's on South America, but it's considered a Caribbean country, right? So it's like right on top of Brazil, like I think, or somewhere like Brazil, another country, but it's considered a Caribbean country, even though it's like landlocked on the South American continent. Aruba, right? French West Indies, French Guyana, and then Saint Martin. So these are all the Caribbean countries that, and I know I said Dominican, Puerto Rican, but we're going to go to that as well with the next one. But those are in there, and Cuban too, because the populations of Black people are the majority, or at least the DNA is the majority. You know what I'm saying? And so Florida, New York, those are the biggest states. You want to do business, have a relationship, get married to, those are the biggest states for Caribbean people, right? Florida, New York, makes sense. But there's other cities as well, right? Or there's other states. Well, actually, no, yeah, there's other states. Next one would be Connecticut, next to New York, right? And then you have cities. And the cities would be Miami, you already know, New York City, you already know, Boston, a huge Caribbean presence in Boston, believe it or not, and Orlando, Florida, right? So these are the biggest population cities that have Caribbean heritage. Now, most notable, or whatever you call it, what I say, the most notable cities, right? The second place cities that have Caribbeans are New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Philly, right? Atlanta, Georgia, and then Maryland, right? Maryland with DC, DC. There's a lot of Caribbean people in DC too. So those are where you can find the most Caribbean people if you want to check them out, right? West Indians, basically the East Coast again, which makes sense, right? Caribbeans down there, Florida, the East Coast, it makes sense. The East Coast of the Mississippi River. So mostly the South and the East Coast. Then you have a little bit of pocket in the Midwest and the West Coast as well in the major cities. Correct. So that's more of the West Indians, Caribbeans. If you want them, East Coast, and actually, there's other percentages too. So let me say some of these cities that, or I'm sorry, states that actually have other percentages as well. Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, and DC. Those are the biggest populations outside of those first outside of like me just saying DC, Washington DC, but outside of that, those are other states that have the biggest populations of Caribbean people, which is interesting. Alaska, okay, whatever. We're going with it. We rocking with it. You know what I'm saying? No, no, Canada too. But this is just all United States of America. We're gonna do a different country next time. This is just all the United States of America, not Canada or any other country. Just the United States, right? So that is the West Indies. So let's get to the last ones. Oh, my Afro Latinos. Yo, hola, ¿cómo estás? Bien, bien. You know what I'm saying? Yo, where Drake when he gets his Jamaican accent. You know what's funny? Before we go to Afro Latinos, when I first heard Drake, listen to Drake, right? Drake's first album was So Far Gone, right? Classic stuff. Even though I was mad when they were saying that he was the best rapper alive in history. I'm like, nah, you're not, yo, you're not. But look, I ain't gonna front. There's some Drake stuff that I like more when he raps, less when he sings. But there's some we rap and sing together. I like it. Whatever. It's a vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like uh, I'm in the hip hop, but the way I rank hip hop is that I can have my relaxed hip hop where some people are not that good, some people are like good, and then some people are amazing, and they can go in that category. Then I have my amazing category where people are just legends and they are the best, and you just that I listen to them, but I listen to everybody. I don't listen to everybody, but I listen to a lot of people because I actually have the affinity to listen to people that aren't really that good. And then when I say that good, I mean like I don't mean suck. I mean like they just might have a different style than what some people want to listen to, but they're still actually good. So that's what I mean. I listen to some hip hop artists that the way that they rap and their tonal is not something that a normal person would listen to if they like this party music all the time. But I like them. But some people might not like them. You know what I'm saying? Not like Migos, but it's believe it or not, actually, I'm actually starting to like Migos sometimes. I like Migos on remixes. I don't really like Migos by themselves, but like I listen to a lot of remixes. So I go around the internet and look for remixes and stuff like that. So if I hear a trash song, but then they redo the beat and it's a dope DJ or I'm sorry, producer, and they make the beat better, then I'll listen to it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I like some of the Migos beats, but I don't really like all of them. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I like remixes. So most of the stuff that I listen to, if it was a song that wasn't that good, if I find a remix that has a dope beat behind it, then yeah, like then I like it. But yeah, that's really the only reason, or that's really the only way I'm listening to Migos. You know. But yo, let's go to the Afro Latinos. Yo, hola, como estás? To all my Afro Latinos, you know what I'm saying, or people that are identified as Afro Latinos, right? Because there's some people that are mixed. Look, I'm not here to tell you who to marry or who to be with. You know what I'm saying? Like, be with whoever makes you happy at the end of the day. Be with whatever ethnicity. You know me, I don't have no ethnic boundaries, right? Like, I don't have no boundaries. If I'm marry somebody from India, I'm gonna marry them. If I'm marry somebody from America, I'm gonna marry them. If I marry somebody from Africa, I'm gonna marry them. It's about how they are as a person. It is what it is, right? Some people, before I go into Afro Latinos, some people just want to stick with their ethnicity. So, like, you might be a Haitian person, you want to just stick with Haitians. You might be African American, you want to stick with African American. You might be Afro City in India, you want to stick with Afro cities or Indian people in India. Look, cool, that's good. That's good. No, that's your decision. I am ethnically ambiguous, right? Like, I don't care where you come from. I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to share cultures. I don't need somebody to have my direct two cultures right here and they know my language and I don't need all that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not a kid, I'm not a baby. But some people like that. Some people want to just be in touch with the other person and know what kind of food they're gonna come home to and like what type of music they're gonna be like. They everybody's different. You know what I'm saying? I'm open minded. But let's go to Afro Latinos. So Afro Latinos, right? And these are Black Hispanics, Afro Latinos. This is in America, not anywhere else, not Colombia, not Jamaica, not Toronto, Canada, in America. The demographics, the biggest population of Afro Latinos are in New York City, which we probably could almost guess that with how many Dominicans and Puerto Ricans that are in New York City, right? And even like Cubans to some extent, Afro Cubans especially. But New York City, Massachusetts, which is right above New York State, if I'm correct. No, Connecticut, Mass, Connecticut, whatever. I get a little combobulated right there. Pennsylvania, right next to New York, New Jersey, then Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. These are the biggest populations. So really, the whole Northeast has which is crazy to think about. The Northeast has the biggest population of Afro Latinos in America. So if you want an Afro Latino, if you want a Black person that is from a Latin country, meaning Dominican, Puerto Rican, right? With Dominican and Puerto Rican, Dominican has a very, very huge majority DNA is African, right? Majority of DNA of Dominican Republic is indigenous African, indigenous peoples. We were here first. I get it. I know, guys. We're gonna get to that at some point, right? Black people all around the world, whatever. Just the names change over time. But people that have melanin in their skin, this is a lot easier. People that have melanin in their skin, right? Majority of Dominican Republican sways more towards the African side, right? The It's mixed. Puerto Rico's a little bit different. Some people lean more towards the European side in Puerto Rico, right? Which it still could be half African or indigenous, right, in them. And then some people lean more to the African side in Puerto Rico, right? So Cuba, Dominican Republic, that's for sure leaning more to the African side. Of course, there are white Cubans, there are white Puerto Rican Dominicans. Obviously, those were the Europeans that were left over in those countries after that European country colonized that Latin American country. So yes, there are white Puerto Ricans. Yes, there are. Blonde hair, blue eyes. There are white Dominicans. Yes, there are. There are white Cubans. Yes, there are. But and they are just the same Europeans that have been there since colonization from Europe. But Cuba and Dominican Republic leans more towards the African side, melanated indigenous side. Puerto Rico is like half and half. Some Puerto Ricans lean more to the black side. Some Puerto Ricans lean more to the European side. Some Puerto Ricans are still, like a mix of both. I would say 60, 70% of population are a mix of all of that. African, indigenous, whatever, same thing. African, indigenous, African, whatever, melanated people, right? And then Europeans. So a lot of Puerto Ricans, especially when you go to New York City, there's some Puerto Ricans that will lean more to the black side. That people will be like, they're not black, and it's like, okay, cool, but if they're not black, or you don't want to consider them black, then you probably don't want to consider Drake black. And a lot of people, black people in the black community, love to like let Drake say whatever he want to say, and they listen to him because he's mixed, he's half black. So if you feel that way about some Puerto Ricans, then you should keep the same energy with Drake because he's mixed, because all the majority of Puerto Ricans are mixed. That's all they are. And even sometimes when you go to North Africa, some tribes in North Africa are just Puerto Ricans in North Africa. They're just mixed in North Africa. But that's another story, right? So when you go to New York, you will see a lot of Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, and Cubans, especially Dominicans in Washington Heights, right, in New York. You will see a lot of Dominicans, and they're more on the black side, right? So these are Afro Latino. Now, of course, do some people identify with being black? No, some people don't. Some people are like, look, I'm not black because there's no benefit to being black in this world when it comes to like corporate America and like all these societies and what you do and how you move, right? And it's been like that for a long time. There's really no benefits. Like, so yes, you'll have people that will be like, nah, I'm not black. Of course. And then sometimes some people, even if they are black, they've been brainwashed or whatever that even means, right? They've been brainwashed to think that they weren't, that they were something different than what they weren't. Whatever that looks like, black, African, melanated, indigenous, whatever you want to call it. Somebody that has deeper color than somebody else, right? So you have that, of course. But if you want an Afro Latino, you will have to go to the East Coast for the most part because you're probably not gonna find that many Afro Latinos on the West Coast. Why? I don't know actually. Well, okay, let's break this down. When it comes to Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, and Cubans, yes, those are more on the East Coast. Those are definitely more on the East Coast. Now, when you're talking about Afro Latinos from Colombia, Central America, South America, so Afro Mexican, Afro Cubans. I'm sorry, not Afro Cuban, Afro Mexicans, Afro Colombians, Afro Belizeans, Afro Venezuelans. When you're talking about those, they're probably still going to go to Florida. I I agree. There's a lot of Afro Latinos in Florida. That's what I was going to say. They're probably going to go to Florida as well. So it's interesting because they're right under California and the West Coast, but because of the culture, I think, of the Caribbeans and other Spanish speaking countries, but also because of Florida and how much Florida is like a mix of those things to where in California, you have more just the dominance of Mexican people, right? That speak Spanish. I think a lot of South American people feel comfortable going more to the East Coast in Florida and New York than they do to the West Coast. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I've noticed. And obviously, the stats say that most Afro Latinos are going to the East Coast, whether it be from Florida all the way up to New York City. So there's that. Um, in the West Coast, yes, like Libby says, in the West Coast, you will see Afro Mexicans in Arizona. Actually, I know an Afro Mexican girl that I'm trying to get on here. I'm trying to get her on the YouTube to talk about Afro Mexican culture, hopefully in the next like couple weeks. And she lives in Arizona. And she, like Lovey says, there's a lot of Afro Mexicans that are in Arizona, that are in Cali, right? There's some Afro Mexicans that don't even know that they are in Cali, in California. You know what I'm saying? They just up there and they're like, why am I like melanated? Why am I dark skinned? Like, you know what I'm saying? So Afro Latinos, mostly East Coast, right? What else? Excuse me. What else can we find about Afro Latinos? Um, so Afro Latinos on the East Coast, right? The total population of Afro Latinos in the United States as of 2017 was 0.6%, or people that identify Afro Latinos. So there could be some other Afro Latinos, they just don't identify it. They don't mark on the census or their work form that they're Afro Latino. They might be like, oh, there's more benefits to being white, or maybe they think that they are, or whatever it is, right? Or like, I'm European, my ancestors are European, or whatever. And it's, it's a possibility they could be. Who knows? Depending on the people. But as of right now, 0.6% of people identify as Afro Latino in America, and they're on the East Coast. So if you want them, go to the Northeast and you will find a lot of them. And then if it's not the Northeast, go to Florida for sure, Miami, Dade County, all these areas. You'll find Afro Colombians, Afro Brazilians. I forgot about Afro Brazilians. You'll find Afro Brazilians. You'll find really almost everything in Florida, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, yeah. I mean, in South America and Central America, there's some countries like Brazil where there's so many different terms for race, like or like who you belong to. In America, there's black, there's like, okay, you're black or African American, you're mixed or you're white, right? Like when it comes to that conversation. In South America, it gets a little bit more diluted in some areas in Central America, probably the more so in Brazil. Brazil has like what, seven classifications or five or 10 or something like that classifications of like race or ethnicity. So there's some terms for like, okay, you have what, Sambo. Sambo is black and Amerindian, right? Like mixed together. Then you have mulatto, which is like black and white. Some countries don't use mulatto no more. America doesn't use mulatto no more. Some Central and South American countries don't use mulatto no more, but then some still do use mulatto. And then you have Moreno, if I'm correct, in Brazil or somewhere in South America, Central America, you have Moreno, you have classifications for almost every skin tone or every shade. So even though in America, if it doesn't matter what, like from light skin to dark skin, you would be considered black. In Brazil, you might be considered something else just because your skin tone changed like one shade, even though technically, theoretically, you're part of the same people. But just because your skin tone changes like one shade, it's a possibility that you could be classified into a certain group of these like 5 or 10 or whatever groups. So yeah, it is true. Outside of America, race and ethnicity is a very complex subject, but also some places people don't even want to talk about it to where they come to America, and where America is based off of race and ethnicity in America, some countries they don't really do that. And they're just like, well, everybody is whatever this nationality is because the country's not that complex. So like this ideology is like super duper weird to them, or they want to try to drop this ideology because they want to fit in or they don't want to be accused of things or whatever it is. So they will come to America and be like, why is everything about race, why is everything about like this, and why, like it's interesting, because I have friends that are from outside of America. I have a lot of friends from outside of America, and when they come to America, they're like, yo, America is just so deep on everything. Like when it comes to stats and everything. One of my friends was watching sports, football, American football, not soccer, World Cup. My team, Brazil, lost today. How did you guys lose, Brazil? How did you lose? That's another story. But Brazil lost in the World Cup today. They got kicked out. So it's all good. I'm rooting for all the rest of the African teams that's in there. We're going to see if Morocco gets kicked out. We're going to see if the rest of the African teams get kicked out. Did Japan get kicked out? Did Japan play yet? I like Japan too. Japan's my team too. But anyways, um, I guess what I'm trying to say to wrap up the video is that my friends came to America and they watched American football and they were like, "Yo, you guys got stats for everything." You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Brazil lost. I'm sad. Oh, Japan lost too. Hey, man, all my teams is getting kicked out the World Cup, man. No. Um. So when he came and he watched American football and he saw how many stats that they had on American football, American basketball, they had stats about every player, every team, when like from 100 years ago, and like how many shots and how many assists and all this kind of stuff, right? In awards, like my homeboy and homegirl, they were so amazed. It was like, yo, in America, they like everything is about digging deep in stats, but like when it comes to the education and normal people, people don't want to dig deep about everyday life. But when it comes to like, sports and just technology and stuff, they dig so deep. They go to like the most minute level. And he was just so amazed when he came to America, and every sport they were talking about stats. And LeBron James just did this and he broke the record, and this record's been around for this many years. And these are the top 10 players that have done this. Like he was so amazed because in some countries, right, the average person or the people that are announcing things, they don't necessarily talk about the stats of things that have happened probably maybe past 5 or 10 years ago. They don't go far back 80, 90 years, whatever. Maybe they don't have the resources, maybe they don't have the stats, or maybe they just don't feel like they have to, right? It's different countries, people live differently. So it's interesting when you come to America, where a lot of things are classified. Some things are classified for law. Some things are classified to get over on other people. Some things are classified because we're just humans and we classify things, right? Humans are difficult. Humans are complex. Humans are a lot. You know what I'm saying? I could be a lot sometimes, but these are the demographics and classifications of melanated people, right? In America, just in America. If you want me to do another country, I'll definitely do it. But today we went over, African American, Black American, Indigenous people. We went over Caribbean, Black people, Indigenous people. We went over African Indigenous people. We went over Afro Latino Indigenous people. Maybe next time I will do Afro Asians and Afro Middle Easterns because I feel like they're left out, and also the Pacific Island people as well, like Papua New Guinea or Fiji and all that kind of stuff like that. Especially with the indigenous people in like Philippines, Australia, India, all kind of stuff, right? It was funny. I was watching a video about how India, I didn't know that there were Indian kings. Of course, there were African Indian kings, but I'm saying I didn't know that some of those populations, those people went to Asia, Southeast Asia. And obviously, we know that there's Black population in Southeast Asia. Indigenous people, the original people in Southeast Asia, are Black people or people of dark melon, right? And of course, most people don't know that because they watch TV, they see light skinned Asians all over the place, whatever, whatever. But the culture and the religion of how Buddhism, right, left India and then went to Southeast Asia, and how a lot of Asian people are Buddhist, but originally, if I'm correct, could be wrong, but if I'm correct, Buddhism comes from India and it went to Southeast Asia, and all these different merchants and kings that were Indian, right, of nationality. We're talking about nationality at this point, not necessarily race or color or whatever, but nationality. They went to from India to Southeast Asia to like Cambodia, to other different countries in Southeast Asia, and they married a lot of the women and they had kids with them. And that is also another reason why some people have ties in Southeast Asia to India and Sri Lanka. And it just blew my mind because there's so much to learn in this world that I didn't know. But there were literally Indian kings and merchants that were going over. And of course, the whole world has been moving around. But they literally went to Cambodia because I have a lot of Cambodian friends because I live in a place where it's a huge population of Cambodian people in America. And it was just so interesting to see how they live now. And it's like, yo, like a lot of these beliefs and stuff come from India. It's just crazy. You know what I'm saying? Through trade and stuff. But I'm gonna do a video on all that, like, because the world has been moved around. And we always got to remember that, like, looking at the world from 2022 is very hard and ignorant because you got to realize that 1,000 years ago, the world was totally different. So, like, if you apply the same thoughts that you apply in 2022 to 1,000 years ago, or 5,000 or 10,000 years ago, it's not going to add up. That's why a lot of people are like, "Yo, I don't understand. How could these people be here, and how could these people be doing this? Because it's 2022, and people are just trying to like hijack other people's identity." But the reality of history, because most people don't really care to even read or even to dive deep, and still have a lot to learn. I'm not saying I'm a master by any means, but I know probably way more than most people do. But the world changes over time, over thousands of years. A group of people that were here might not be here today. In 2022, they might be here. 1,000 years from now, they might not be here. This conversation that we have might not look the same in 1,000 years in Ohio, in America. It might not. Or maybe, who knows? Maybe it will be 100% melanated, and maybe this conversation is going to look like this in 1,000 years. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Things change. So you got to realize whenever you're talking about anything, you have to talk about different time periods. And when you talk about different time periods, you have to understand the terms of what people were called, what they called themselves, and then what foreigners called them as well. The same thing with Africa. Greeks called African people at some point Ethiopians. We were Ethiopians, all kind of stuff like that, right? All these different names, right? There's Ali Boo land, Ali Boo land. There's Ethiopians. There's all these different names that have changed. So it's very important to know the foreigners, whatever group you're in or whatever, the foreigners that were coming to that group, right, to conquer them, to do trade, to do business, whatever. You have to understand what they were calling these people and what they documented. But then you also have to understand what those people call themselves and what they looked at the world as well. And all these terms that we use today didn't exist probably even 500 years ago. Of course, some did, but some don't. But me personally, I think it's easier to meet people where they at. And if they know these terms for the last 100 years, I'm gonna meet them there and I'm gonna let them know what it is. And I'm just gonna stay like that because it's just easier. Like, most people are not even gonna listen to you if you're talking some stuff that they don't even begin to understand. You don't start building cars and just go in and be like, I'm gonna be a master mechanic and a huge tuner in a big company like Honda or Ford or Lexus or Acura and know what I'm doing. No, it takes years to learn, right? And they were something when they first started, but they've turned into these huge corporations that know what they're doing, that are very at the top of their A game, right? In 2022, which took most companies and corporations over 100 years, or maybe 70 to 100 years. So, guys, today we talked about demographics. This video will be up, right? We've been on here for over an hour. I'm going to do another video like this in different countries. If there's different countries you guys want me to do it about, break it down, populations, especially with like Black Americans, right? Indigenous Black Americans. There's people in America that are in different countries, right? Because I had an idea. I had an idea before I go. I'm like, what if there was a soul food restaurant or even an Egyptian restaurant? Okay, let's keep it as soul food, right? What if there was a soul food restaurant that was in some African countries? Are there soul food restaurants in African countries? This is the type of stuff I'm talking about. The demographics, right? Where people are at, what they are doing, being more in touch with knowing these things. I know a lot of these things, but a lot of people don't know a lot of these things. It doesn't mean that just because I know this information that I'm going to make a better decision than you. You might make a better decision than me. I don't know. But just knowing that these places exist so you can know, okay, I can go here. 5 years from now, 10, I can save some money. I can move here, or I can just go and do business here and put my feet down here and try to like set some roots in Africa. If you can tell me in the comments, are there any soul food restaurants, right? African American, Black American, Indigenous, right? Are there any third generation on African American soul food restaurants in Africa? Are there? Because I have an idea for soul food restaurant chain in Africa. We could just bypass America. I mean, we can get that money in America, but I don't know. It's very hard, it seems like, for Black restaurants to become a huge change, not change, chain corporation in America when it comes to soul food. So, how can we modernize soul food in a way that it's easy to eat? Maybe not fast food, because soul food is not really fast food. Okay, there's some soul food that is fast food, but majority of soul food is not fast food. That's just not traditionally what it was. So there's some things that could possibly be fast food, like maybe grits, maybe grits, maybe like because you can make it in big masses, maybe cornbread, right? Like those could be soul foods. Maybe we could even say fried chicken, right? But like in America, it seems like when it comes to any African descent restaurant, it's very hard to make it a national brand. It is very hard. Like if you're selling your cultural food and not like European food or like a combination of European or whatever, like hamburgers or hot dogs or pizza or whatever, right? But in Africa, Lovey said in Ghana there might be one, but that's that would be dope. Yeah, food fusion. Look, we need to get soul food restaurants in Africa first so we can take over. And then second of all, I'm a work on that. I might be the first person that makes soul food restaurants, big chain in Africa, then move to the Caribbean, then come back to America because they love me here. You know what I'm saying? But fusion. Oh, think about this. African American soul food with Somali. Fuse that. We both have similar dishes. We both have rice dishes, right? We both have rice dishes. Same with Egyptian food, right? We can fuse that my cultures. We can fuse those together. Same with Ghanaian food. Same with Egyptian food. Same with most African food, but Somali food because I know these ones the best. Somali food. You have uh, what is it? You have Bosco Bris, right? Noodles rice, right? You can take the rice. We have dirty rice, right? Red rice and beans. You can mix those two together, Somali rice and dirty rice, or Somali rice and red rice and beans, mix them together. And then they have sugo in Somali culture. And sugo is reminds you of African American grits. So you could even mix those together, right? Whatever flavors are with sugo, and then whatever flavors traditional with uh, grits. In the South, a lot of Black people put like I don't know, they put vegetables sometimes. They don't put sugar. They put meat in it sometimes. Some Black people in the South they put meat in their grits, but a lot of people they put vegetables like tomatoes, or they eat them plain without no sugar. In the North, a lot of Black people eat grits with sugar. So it'd be interesting. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have to do soul food restaurant all throughout Africa. First biggest chain. I'm saying it right now. We're gonna do this in the future. And then second, we need to do some more like Black fusion dishes. That would be pretty dope. But yo, guys, I'm out of here. Love being on video. I might get back on here later. But yo, please like, subscribe, turn on the bell notification down there so you get all my videos. Add me on all social medias, which is African Network, which is Instagram, Twitter, SoundCloud, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram. Each one teach one. Always love each other. Always learn from each other. Yo, guys, till next time. Peace. One love.